Mary Beth and the Storm in the Teacup. The storm came in fast, a real cosmic tantrum. Thunder rolled like distant drums as lightning clawed the sky in brilliant jagged streaks. Trees thrashed in the wind, leaves tearing free like confetti in the dark. Boats rocked on their moorings, ropes pulled tight with every gust. Fenders squealed like startled pigs, and the windows rattled as the rain hammered on the roofs like falling gravel. It was a long, wild night, a test of ropes and rivets and nerves. As the morning came in gently, a soft sigh hushed across the landscape. The sky blushed in hues of red and violet, a soft mist curling off the canal like breath. The water was finally still, and it mirrored the dawn. Gladys blinked sleep from her windows, and Mary Beth stirred quietly beside her, her lines slack now. The humans were also rising. The RiverRaver and Paul sat out on the towpath, cups in hand and the faint scent of something herbal mingling with the crisp morning air. "I've got a bad feeling about that oak," Paul murmured, rubbing his chin and looking towards the bend. "It's been leaning all week. It rather looks like it's been contemplating its life choices a bit too hard. I reckon we should go check that stretch by Candle Bridge." Paul took a stretch, cracked his back, and then grabbed the RiverRaver's hand to lead her along. "Come on," he said, "before it gets cold." "But can I?" And the RiverRaver just about had enough time to settle her cup down on the roof. As they turned the corner on the towpath, they could already see the damage. A large oak tree, with a trunk like an old wise man's knuckles. "It must have come down during the night," the RiverRaver chimed to Paul. "I can't believe we didn't hear it." The tree was blocking the entire canal. And then they saw Jay. Jay was standing on the bow of his boat, Remembrance, a vessel that looked like she'd seen many seasons. He was tugging on one of the bigger limbs with a rope looped around his shoulder. His shoulders were haunched, his sleeves were soaked, but he was determined. He looked up, gave a nod, and then went back to trying to arm wrestle a forest. "You're keen, aren't you?" shouted the RiverRaver. "Thought you'd at least wait for coffee first." Jay wiped the sweat up from his brow. "Well, I thought I'd start untangling things. Figured somebody had to." "Do you want a hand?" said Paul, already reaching for his gloves. "Looks like this tree decided to take a nap right in the middle of the cut." Jay and the RiverRaver laughed, and then the three of them set to work. "Right, let's sort this mess out, shall we? We wouldn't want to hold up any early morning duck traffic." They tugged with ropes and pulled on branches until all that remained was the large body of the trunk. "Phew, this is hard work. Broccoli break, anybody?" suggested the RiverRaver. The kettle boiled, doob skins were rolled, and in the meantime, the boats were having their own conversation. Gladys turned to Mary Beth. "This one's big," she said, her voice in a low thrum. "It's a proper unit," said Mary Beth in return. "They won't shift that on their own," cracked Remembrance. "Well, we're going to have to help them then," said Mary. The plan was wordless, but each boat understood their individual assignment. When the time was right, the three boats nudged together, pressed, braced, and a collective heave, hull of wood and water, and the great trunk, soaked and stubborn, groaned and then moved. Not far, but just far enough. "Do you guys see that?" Paul blinked, looking through the window to the tree on the water. "I swear that thing was wedged a second ago." "Maybe it was a really potent gust of wind," said the RiverRaver. The three of them went outside and stared with furrowed brows. Then Jay broke the silence. The water level must have shifted. That's it. RiverRaver and Paul gave a vague murmur of agreement. It must be. Behind them, the boats floated innocently, saying nothing. Their silence was practically a wink. Everyone's gaze then fell to something else. Beside the bridge was a bench that had a teacup on it that were both now destroyed. It was something of a local legend, and everybody knew the significance. Jay gently touched the bench, and the RiverRaver picked up the tiny pieces of teacup that were on the floor. Where Joy and her husband used to sit, isn't it? The RiverRaver asked quietly, noticing the plaque on the bench. Yep, they'd sit here every evening, cup of tea, watching the sunset together. He put that teacup there when and it's all that's left of them now, a little piece of their story. He's getting on now, but he still comes here every Sunday. There was a pause as they all took in the scene, a quiet acknowledgement of lives lived and memories held. Finally, Paul let out a sigh. We'll fix it. We've got the tools, and I reckon we can make it as good as new. It deserves to be good as new. Can't have a broken heart by the waterways now, can we? And Jay lifted the bench between them, laying it flat on a dry patch of grass. They worked in sync, no words needed, replacing the damaged wood, sanding it smooth, repainting the slats in a warm honey brown. Then Jay found a fresh bolt in his pocket and smiled a little, as if he'd brought it for something else but knew it belonged here, a small quiet act of fate. Meanwhile, the RiverRaver had gathered the broken pieces of the teacup and brought them back to her boat. She sat at her little workbench, glue and paintbrush in hand, and, steady with care, and bit by bit, the teacup began to take shape again. It was fragile, it was flawed, but it was still beautiful. And as a final touch, she painted 2 interlocked hearts on the side. Then she polished the plaque until it gleamed again. By the time the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in orange and gold, the bench was back in its place, stronger now, restored, cared for, loved. And the teacup now restored back to its rightful place. And the plaque sparkled once more in the golden light. To Joy, for all the sunsets and all the tea, it read. Remembrance, Gladys and Mary Beth floated nearby, quiet and content. You did well today, Mary Beth said to Remembrance. He hummed. It was just for Joy, you know. They were a proper set, like a lock and key kind of love. And though the humans could never hear them, and the boats could never express, somehow everything was a little softer and warmer, as if someone, somewhere, was watching. Jay began to walk back to Remembrance. Long day, AJ, said the RiverRaver, pulling out a perfectly rolled Blue Peter. Care for a little puff pass and some dinner, mate? Jay chuckled and gratefully took the offering. Paul joined them, and the 3 of them stood, in the last of the sun, dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in a final vibrant flourish. Side by side, as the colours faded, the silence was deep and full. The teacup sat on its bench, the bench stood beneath the tree, by the bridge, and all the love once broken was whole again.